are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, May 13th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. I have something else up. Make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So you got a little bit of a preview of what we're going to start out with, but you'll also see it based on the show segment as well. And we're going to start off the show, talk about the NFC South. I'll continue my rankings of the teams from each division post-NFL draft. So we're going to talk about the NFC South today. Then, in the second part of the show, we'll talk about some speculation that Netflix could be doing a couple of games, broadcasting a couple of games for the NFL in 2024. So we'll get into that as well. Then in the third part of the show, I'll talk about a couple of things with the Atlanta Falcons, where Kirk Cousins is in his recovery from the torn Achilles, as well as the Falcons' optimism for Kyle Pitts, their tight end, and hoping for a big year out of him now with Cousins at quarterback. Then in the fourth part of the show, because this is the first day of the new format, fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about, a couple things, more quarterback stuff as well for the day. We're going to get into Caleb Williams being named the starter officially by the Bears. Which, I think we all knew that was going to happen, but they officially named him the starter. And then we will talk about the Raiders in the final part of the show, the fifth and final part of the show. We'll talk about the Raiders and their thoughts on their quarterback situation with Gardner Minshew and AidanO'Connell, because they didn't address the quarterback position in the draft. And they probably would have taken Michael Penix if he fell to them. I think that's kind of what's been floating around, if I'm not mistaken, but because I think they did want Penix, because I remember seeing a headline on that, but yeah, so they ended up taking the best player available in Brock Bowers, but yeah, they're going into the year with Gardner Minshew and AidanO'Connell as their quarterbacks, and we'll see how that plays out, but I will talk about it in the final part of the show. So yeah, first day of the new format with an added segment. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the NFC South post the NFL draft. And I know you saw the graphic that I was including. So I spoiled it a little bit. But yeah, it's not really that big of a deal. It's just, the teams, just to kind of add some, some imaging to the segment here. But yeah, so today's the NFC South. So let's talk about these teams. Now, this is probably one of the weaker divisions in the NFL. And last year, it did come down to, it was competitive. 3 of the 4 teams were in it pretty much the whole year. But the Bucs finished with a 9-8 record last year. And, also the Saints did as well, but they ended up missing out because of, tiebreakers, I believe. So, yeah, it ended up being the Bucs division. They did almost lose to they should have lost to the Panthers in the final week of the regular season, but they were able to hold on and win the division. And the Falcons, if they had stability at the quarterback position, they probably could have won it themselves. At one point I thought maybe it is going to be the Falcons that are going to win it, but between Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder, it wasn't going to happen. So going into this year now, how do I see this division playing out? Well, we're going to start off with the team that I think is going to be ranked the last, or I'm going to have them being ranked last, and that is the Carolina Panthers. I still think that they're going to finish in last place this year. Now, they did make improvements through free agency and the draft to try to put Bryce Young in a better situation for 2024. They traded for Deontay Johnson. They addressed the offensive line. They also drafted a receiver. They drafted a running back as well. So they're trying to put Bryce Young in a better situation. And if Bryce Young can make that jump in 2024, that would be great for the Panthers fans, Panthers fan base, the organization, because, I mean, they moved heaven and earth to get this guy in last year's draft, and it was a rough first season. But now, like I said, you addressed the offense, and you're just hoping for the best now, and you're hoping that he could take that next step. And now with the new head coach in place, who did well with Baker Mayfield last year, the offensive he was the offensive coordinator of the Buccaneers at Canales. You're hoping that Bryce Young can have a better year too. But I still look at the other three teams as them being better. So I'm still going to rank them last, but I think they will be better this year. I think you will get a couple more wins out of them. Now, they're probably still not going to finish with a great record, but that's just my opinion. Then we go to the Saints. The Saints are an interesting team because they really didn't do that much in free agency. They had to let go of some guys. Michael Thomas is now not going to be there, who's there forever. Or, well, I shouldn't say forever, but, at one point he was one of the best receivers in the NFL, but injuries caught up to him. So, and the Saints, their cap situation isn't the best. And Derek Carr, and I've said this on previous shows, he finished the season strong. But is that going to carry over into next season? And now I'll kind of go through their draft because I actually really didn't talk about their draft. So they drafted a tackle, Talise Fuaga, with the 14th overall pick. I hope that's how you pronounce it. They did draft one of the best names in the draft, Kool-Aid McKinstry, the cornerback. And there's been some speculation on whether they're going to trade Marshawn Lattimore or not, but as of right now, he's still a Saint. So, but they drafted him. They took Spencer Rattler in the 5th round. So they actually didn't have a 3rd or 4th round pick. I didn't realize that. So they took Spencer Rattler in the 5th round. They took another receiver, Bub Means, in the 5th round. They took Jalen Ford, a linebacker, as well. So they had 3 5th round picks. Then in the 6th round, they took a defensive tackle, Christian Boyd. And then they took another tackle with their last pick in the 7th round, Josiah Ezrim. I hope that's... again, apologize for the pronunciation. But yeah, so they took 2 tackles, offensive tackles. They took a wide receiver, a quarterback, linebacker, corner, and defensive tackle. So that's what they did in the draft. Free agency, again, nothing really spectacular. I know they signed Chase Young, to add to the defensive line. On a 1-year deal. So I think he's actually they signed him while he was still hurt, I believe. I remember there was something about that signing. But yeah, they really haven't done much. So I think they're kind of still going to be around an 8-9 win team. So but I think with Derek Carr they're still going to be competitive, but it might not be. And you got guys getting older, on the defense with Cameron Jordan. And, on the offensive side, Alvin Kamara's starting to get older too. So, it's... The Saints are going to have to go into a rebuild at some point. But we'll see what they do this year. And then, talk about the Buccaneers. I got them at 2. Now, they brought back all of their guys. They brought back Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Levante David as well, Antoine Winfield Jr. I was like, I'm like, why is the safety escaping my mind right now? But yeah, Antoine Winfield Jr. So yeah, they brought back all their guys. So they're trying to run it back, and, win this division again. But for me personally, I think with the healthy Kirk Cousins, the Falcons, I'd put them ahead of them. And listen, the Falcons and the Bucs, they did split last year. And that was with Desmond Ridder as the quarterback. So, for me, I'm going to put the Falcons ahead of the Bucs. But the Bucs, I still expect them to be in the mix to win this division. I'm hoping for Baker Mayfield to continue his success from last year, carry it over into 2024. But the division's going to be tougher. It is. And if Derek Carr can continue his success from the end of last year, carry it over into this year, that makes the division tougher. And the Panthers are going to be better. And the Panthers almost beat the Bucs twice. Both those games were close. I know the final game of the regular season was 9-0. Like I said, the Panthers should have maybe beat them before, but yeah, it's going to be a tougher division for the Buccaneers. So, but I think that they are the second best team, even though I'm going to, hope that they end up winning the division. And then the Falcons, I put them at 1. I think that with Kirk Cousins, you got stability at the quarterback position. He's coming back from a significant injury, so you do worry about that, but I feel like he's going to be fine, and he's going to put up good numbers. And, they added to the receiving core. You got Rondale Moore and Darnell Mooney. That both of those guys have speed. But, with Kirk Cousins now at quarterback, let's see the kind of impact that they have. And then you got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, who we'll talk about in the next segment. Or actually, no, the third segment. I apologize for that. I think the Falcons are going to, well, of course, and I didn't even mention Tyler Algier and, of course, Bijan Robinson. The offense is good. It's solid. And, I think the defense might be a little bit of an issue, but, I just think for me, with Kirk Cousins, if he's healthy, I think this is the best team in the division. So, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But, yeah, so that's my rankings. I got the Panthers, the Saints, the Buccaneers, and then the Falcons at 1. So let me know what you guys think about those rankings. How would you rank the NFC South? Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about the NFL or Netflix in talks to stream the Christmas games this year for the NFL. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about Netflix being in talks to stream the NFL games that will be played on Christmas. So actually, speaking of NFL games, so they did announce, now do we want to use the breaking news, even though it kind of broke, a couple hours ago? We're going to use it anyways. So the NFL did announce who the Chiefs are going to be playing on opening night, and it is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. So I did say it was going to come down to the Ravens or the Bengals, but it ended up being the Ravens. So we're going to get a rematch of the AFC Championship game from last year. So, we get that right off the bat. So that should be that's an exciting game to look forward to between Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, against the reigning Super Bowl champions in Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And we add another chapter to the Patrick Mahomes Lamar Jackson saga. So, yeah, just wanted to bring that up. We'll discuss that tomorrow, and I'll give you my thoughts on the game. I mean, again, it's so far away, but again, just something else to talk about. So we'll talk about it tomorrow. But because the schedule does come out this week, we get the whole release on Wednesday. So I will talk about it on Thursday's show and give you my overall thoughts on it. But yeah, so just wanted to bring those things to light. So yeah, Netflix is reportedly in contract talks to stream the NFL's 2 Christmas Day games in 2024. Nothing's been official yet, but according to some reports, it looks like Netflix could be the home of the NFL Christmas games. The NFL was seeking at least $50 million for the broadcasting or streaming rights to each game, possibly as much as $100 million per game. Negotiations between the NFL and Netflix have caused a delay in the release of the league's schedule for the 2024 season. The original plan was to release the schedule on May 9th, but it'll now be revealed on May 15th. Streaming services like Amazon Prime and Peacock, of course, have streamed NFL games. I mean, you got Amazon Prime doing the Thursday night games, and Peacock had a couple of exclusive games during the I think it was week 15 or 16. It was Bills-Chargers, and then they had the playoff game, which actually was on the other night, the playoff game with the Dolphins. It was on NFL Network between the Dolphins and the Chiefs. They did that game as well. Netflix, they're going to be airing the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight, as well as they secured a deal with WWE for Monday Night Raw. And I'm sure Eric, the wrestling podcast host here on the GSMC Sports Network, has already talked about that. But yeah, so Netflix already has the rights to that, but now they're trying to, get some rights to the NFL, which would be big for them. Because, this is kind of like, the streaming services are battling it out with each other. I mean, like I said, Amazon Prime, they're doing games. You got, Peacock has the rights to some games. It's only a matter of time before CBS has Paramount Plus, exclusively, has a game air exclusively on their platform, which is one of the few streaming services that I don't have a connection to at the moment. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But yeah, I mean, now, look, it's good for Netflix, and, for consumers that do have the service, it's not a big deal. But again, it's just another hurdle for some people that might not have access to that. So if your favorite team is playing on Netflix and you don't have access to it, well, you're not going to be watching it. Now, again, if you celebrate Christmas and you say to yourself, well, it's not that big of a deal to me, I could just, I'm trying to enjoy the holidays and not stress about my football team. Okay, that's one way to look at it. But there are some people, including myself, that are going to be wanting to watch these games while you're enjoying the holidays. And again, I'll be able to, and many others will, but then you got that group of individuals that might not be able to access it. So it's just kind of tough for them. It's another, again, like I said, it's another hurdle that some people are going to have to jump over if they're even going to be able to. And I've talked about this on previous shows, but yeah, this is where we're going right now. This is the direction we're heading in, and it's not going to stop because, again, you got streaming services that are already airing NFL games during the year, and it's going to continue. I mean, regular TV is not going to be a thing when you go down the, when we progress and, time passes, regular TV is just not going to be there anymore. And I don't really watch it that often. I mean, I really am only watching it for sports at this point. I'm not really watching regular TV to watch, TV shows. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm watching it for games. And if there's nothing really on that I want to watch, I mean, again, sometimes I'll flip through and look for, if there's a movie on or a show from, my time, not shows that are on now, but if there's like a rerun of something, or again, if there's a movie on, I'll put it on, just have it on in the background. But like, I'm not watching regular TV religiously. I'm just not doing that. I'm only watching it for sports. So yeah, it's again, I'm not really happy the direction that we're going in, that it's just everything's going to be on streaming services as opposed to just, you're flipping through channels and you go to whatever game you want to watch. If a Yankee game's on and, a big NFL game is on, or, with the Knicks being in the playoffs, or, I've been paying some attention to hockey, but not that much. You could just flip through the channels. But now you got to, if you're watching a game on regular TV and you got to switch over to a streaming service, then you got to go to the app on your TV, or if you have a Fire Stick or whatever, and you got to, go to it that way. You can't just simply click one button and you're there. So, but yeah, like I said, that's the direction we're going in. So actually, because I know I have Verizon, I think we do have a Netflix channel. So actually, yeah, I'll be able to do that. But, but again, there's people that aren't going to be able to, and it's it's going to be annoying for them. And then, but that's just where we're going. So, and again, it's good for Netflix because they're trying to keep up with everybody. Like you have, it was HBO Max, but now it's Max. They air NBA games, they air NHL games on their service. Again, Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime also has the rights to the Yankees too, so they get 20-something games a year. Peacock, now they get the exclusive NFL games. They've aired college basketball games on there as well. So, Netflix is trying to, get themselves involved and keep up and have them broadcast sports. So that's why that's why they got the rights to WWE, and they might be airing the 2 Christmas games on their platform. So, that's good for them. But it's just, again, it's another app that you're probably, or another app, another streaming service that you're going to have to try to go out and get. Well, not try, but go out and get and download and make a subscription and pay for it, unless you want to do the free trial, because that's an option. But it's just more steps to have to watch an NFL game for certain people. Again, it's not an issue for me. It's not an issue for others, but again, there's that group that is going to have a problem getting to, buying a subscription and setting it all up so they're able to watch their game. But again, that's where we're going. Me personally, not a fan of it, but it is what it is. This is where we're going. It's not going to stop. So you might as well just jump on board and, or you're going to be left behind, because this is where we're going. And before you know it, it's going to happen with the Super Bowl too. It's going to happen with the Super Bowl. I hope not, but yeah, it's going to happen where we might have to pay to watch the Super Bowl, which it's not going to happen in the immediate future. Roger Goodell has talked about it, but yeah, it's only a matter of time before we get to that point. So, but that's my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think about Netflix now dipping their toes in the NFL world. They kind of already did with the roast of Tom Brady, but now it's not, now they're going to be airing football games, possibly. So we'll keep an eye on that and see whether or not that's official. We're going to find out very soon. But before we go to break, though, just want to remind you guys again, but I have to switch up the stuff here. Again, just got to give me 1 second here. But yeah, just want to remind you guys again, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we are going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons, talk about a couple things with them, Kirk Cousins' progression in workouts, as well as Falcons' optimism for Kyle Pitts and their hopes of him breaking out this season with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about a couple of things regarding the Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins as well as Raheem Morris and the Falcons. Their thoughts on Kyle Pitts, their tight end, having a breakout season. Some optimism regarding him. And, yeah, we've reached the halfway point of the show now because now we have 5 segments. So I know we talked about the Falcons a little bit to open the show, but I just wanted to talk about some things that, like I said, head coach Raheem Morris, what he had to say regarding Kirk Cousins as well as Kyle Pitts. So this is on Kirk Cousins and his progression from the torn Achilles. And this is what he had to say. He said, Kirk is every day improving. We're kind of right at the point where he's doing everything that we can do at this point in phase 2, which is nobody around him. There's no contact. He's all good with all those type of things. He's been doing all those things. He's been throwing. He's been out there pretty much a full go. Now we got him in a limited basis, obviously, because he's still in his rehab and his treatment and all those types of things. And he also said, it's not like training camp where I'm worried about people being around his feet. So seems like everything is, progressing in the right direction. And he still had a couple more things to say. We'll limit what he does as far as the amount, not necessarily what he's doing. So those are all the quotes that I have from what he had to say about Kirk Cousins. And like I said, things are progressing well. He's not taking any contact or anything. And again, it's one of those injuries where, and the Jets are going to have to do this with Aaron Rodgers too, is you want to ease them back into it. And, well, I mean, you have to. And the Falcons, it's interesting, though, because, they did draft his successor already in Michael Penix Jr. So, I mean, if Kirk Cousins gets hurt, Michael Penix is going to get a shot. And for Kirk Cousins, he doesn't want that to happen. And, again, that was like one of the biggest surprises from the draft is the Falcons taking Penix, and just Cousins was blindsided by it. But again, you have the people in the camp of, hey, he's making a lot of money. It's he's got to deal with it, and he's going to. And I saw another headline that Michael Penix again talking highly of Kirk Cousins. So there's going to be a good relationship there, it seems. So, I don't think we have to worry about that, but, I think Kirk Cousins in the back of his mind is a little, ticked off about it, because it's just funny how that was the reason why he left Minnesota, is because they had the desire to take a young quarterback, and he goes to Atlanta, and that's exactly what they did with their first pick. So, but, yeah, you just got to deal with it, but Cousins is, slowly but surely getting himself back into shape. And, he's going to be ready to go by week 1. and then the Falcons will be off and running. And, I expect Kirk Cousins to put up good numbers. I think if he's healthy, the Falcons should be the favorites to win the division, in my opinion. But, you still got to be a little hesitant because he's coming off of a significant injury, and he's an older quarterback. So you do have to take that into account, but I think he's going to do well. And they got a good supporting cast around him. Is it as good as it was in Minnesota? No. It's a little bit of a downgrade, but these guys are hoping that Cousins can bring them to new heights. And I think they will. I think he will. But are the Falcons a team that I look at as a Super Bowl contender with Cousins? No, I don't. But I think they're a team that could definitely make the playoffs. And maybe win a playoff game. But I don't see them going any further than the second round. Because I just think that there's other teams that are better. But that's my opinion on that. So yeah, that's the update on Kirk Cousins. Slowly but surely making progress, and it seems like things are going well. And yeah, he's going to be ready to go by week 1. So the other thing he talked about as well, Raheem Morris, was Kyle Pitts. Now, Kyle Pitts, the Falcons drafted him high in his draft. And he hasn't really been the player. He hasn't really had the productivity that you wanted to. I mean, I know especially doing fantasy, people are not happy with his performance. But the talent is there. It's just he hasn't been. I think some people look at that he just wasn't used properly with Arthur Smith. I mean, you had Jonnu Smith making plays in the offense last year. It's like, where's Kyle Pitts? And Raheem Morris talked about Kyle Pitts. He said how he's very excited about being healthy, and so are we. Getting a healthy Kyle Pitts gives you a really dynamic player that we believe in a lot, hence the picking up of his option and letting him be a part of our immediate and hopefully our long-term future. He also said, if we can get this guy going, we all know what he could be. That's the job of the coach to find out what a player can be and go get the best out of him. Hopefully myself along with my staff and all of our coaches, we can go and get the best version of Kyle Pitts because that will be really good for all of us. And the other thing too is, I know I said how he's been used, but yeah, you could look at the quarterback position. And just, it's been a revolving door. You had Matt Ryan, you had Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, and Taylor Heineke. Those are the quarterbacks that have been throwing to him. And, you're looking for some stability at that position. But, Kyle Pitts, actually his first season with Matt Ryan at quarterback, he only had 1 touchdown, but he did have over 1,000 yards receiving. He had 68 receptions, 1,026 receiving yards, and a touchdown. And then in 2022, 356 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, and then 3 touchdowns. So the touchdowns have gone up slowly but surely, but yeah, you're hoping for more, and he had 667 receiving yards in 2023 on 53 receptions. So, yeah, you're kind of hoping for, more production out of him, and I think with Kirk Cousins, you're going to get that. But he played actually in every game in 2023 and 2021, but he only played in 10 games in 2022. And we do have a comment from Mr. Eric, who I did briefly mention before, talking about Netflix, airing the WWE. The host of the Wrestling Laureate podcast. I did not pronounce that right. But yeah, he's a wrestling podcast host, and he said Kirko Chain's going to bring the Falcons to the Super Bowl. Listen, that's being very optimistic, but yeah, I don't know about that. And he said, "You're the man, Kenneth." You know what, Eric? You're the man too, because Eric, listen, he shouts us all out at the end of his shows. And I appreciate that. Probably one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, even though I haven't met him in person. I see him over Zoom. But really nice guy. Make sure to check out the wrestling podcast. Make sure to do that. But appreciate the comments, Eric, in the chat. So make sure to check out his shows. But yeah, always shouting us out at the end. So that's why, I'm trying to do the same thing, repay the debt, even though it's not really a debt, but whatever. I don't even know what I'm saying. But yeah, back to Kyle Pitts. He hasn't dealt with the best quarterbacks. Hasn't had the best quarterback situation. When you had Marcus Mariota, who was kind of the bridge guy, then you had Desmond Ridder, and the Falcons were kind of hoping maybe he would be the guy, but it just never really panned out that way. And Taylor Heineke's kind of a backup. So now you're getting Kirk Cousins, and you see the success that Kirk Cousins has had over the years with tight ends. Like you go back to even when he played with Washington with Jordan Reed, and you had T.J. Hawkinson. They brought in from Detroit when he was with Minnesota. So yeah, I mean Kyle Pitts has had over 1,000 yards receiving, and that was back in 2021. He's hoping to have another 1,000-yard season again, and you're hoping that's with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. So I think Kyle Pitts should have a big season with Kirk, and maybe you see him get close to double-digit touchdowns, maybe, because he's going to be a red zone target for Kirk, and you hear Raheem Morris and what he's saying, and how he wants to put Kyle Pitts in the right situations and wants to bring the best out of him. Well, I think you might get the best out of Kyle Pitts. If you get Kirk Cousins back healthy, and he's the same Kirk Cousins that was putting up big numbers before he got hurt, Kyle Pitts should benefit from that. And I think Kirk's going to spread the ball around to his receivers, and Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, they're going to make an impact on the game as well. But I think Kyle Pitts is going to put up numbers this year. I don't know if he's going to get 1,000 yards, but I think you're going to see him. I think he's going to have a career best in touchdowns in a single season for him. I mean, again, the bar's not really that high because the most he's had in a season is 3. But I think you'll see him get more than 3 touchdowns with Kirk Cousins at quarterback for this season. So, but that's my thoughts on the Falcons. Let me know what you guys think about the Falcons. Again, Eric, he said that he's going to bring the Falcons to the Super Bowl. Kirk Cousins, yeah, I don't know about that. But I expect them to be in the mix for the playoffs and probably do make the playoffs. But that's my opinion. So when we come back from our third break of the show, we are going to talk about the Bears officially naming Caleb Williams the starting quarterback, which is not really that big of a surprise, but we're going to talk about it when we come back from our third break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about Caleb Williams officially being named the Bears starting quarterback. And during the break, I was practicing saying Wrestling Lawyerette Podcast because I did not pronounce it right, so I wanted to get that right. So Wrestling Lawyerette Podcast. That's the show that Eric does, and that's late. Well, my time, it's late. It's 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure to check it out. I mean, it's 12 hours from now, but, make sure to tune in for it. But again, we, repost the shows. I mean, the live stream, the whole show is up on the live stream part, but then you also have, we'll repost the segments. But yeah, just wanted to say that. Make sure to go check it out if you're a wrestling fan. So let's get into Caleb Williams now. So the Bears officially named him the starting quarterback. Now you're probably saying, well, duh. Yeah, but I just wanted to talk about it because they officially, said it. So I figured we discuss it. So yeah, he officially named Caleb Williams. Matt Eberflus officially named the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, as a starting quarterback for the 2024 season. And he said he made the announcement without hesitation, stating, "No conversation, he's the starter." I mean, we kind of all knew this. I mean, it wasn't going to be Tyson Bagent, who did fill in, and he, did win a game. He did win he won 2 games, I believe. They won against the Raiders, and they also won against the Panthers. Now, you could look at that and say, well, those aren't really that impressive, but hey, they're wins. So, Bagent did win a couple games. And, it's going to be a big year for Caleb Williams. I did say in a previous show, when I was talking about quarterbacks that are going to be dealing with pressure, I think Caleb Williams is one of those quarterbacks. Because, now I know it's only his first year, but I just feel like there's expectations there for the Bears. And I think what they've done this offseason, bringing in Keenan Allen to go along with DJ Moore, who had a good season last year, Cole Kmet, you signed DeAndre Swift, you drafted Rome Odunze to add to that trio of wide receivers. And I think that trio of wide receivers is going to be one of the better trios in the NFL. Keenan Allen was coming off of a career year. DJ Moore was good last year. And you got Rome Odunze, who was a number 1 wide receiver in college. Now, again, it's going to be different in the NFL. But, now you're bringing him in. He was one of the top receivers in the draft. And you have a good tight end. The expectations are there for the Bears. And they were still kind of in the playoff mix towards the end of the year with Justin Fields. And they did lose some close games down the stretch, against the Browns and also losing to the Lions in Detroit. Those are 2 games that they could have won. They had double-digit leads. And you hold on to those, you finish 9-8. And who knows? But, you're hoping it carries over into this year. And it's a new quarterback. It's a rookie quarterback. But he was taken with the number 1 overall pick. And the Bears are expecting big things out of him. And he was good in college. I know some people will say, well, they have their complaints with him, maybe being too emotional, and maybe some games didn't play so well. But, he's got the talent. He's got the talent, and the Bears, they have surrounded him with a lot of talent. I think, if you just look at the offense that the Bears have put together, right now on paper, you say that's a good situation for a quarterback to end up in. And it's kind of comical to say when it comes to the Bears, because in the past, many people would say that being drafted by the Bears is not a good situation. But I think this situation is good for him, because you got arguably 2 wide receiver 1s. We'll see how Rome Odunze translates to the NFL. You see, DeAndre Swift ran the ball pretty well for the Eagles last year. And, I think for these rookie quarterbacks, you want to have a good running game behind them, so that takes the pressure off of them. I mean, people have their negatives when it comes to J.J. McCarthy, but, the Vikings with Aaron Jones brought him over. If J.J. McCarthy's playing this year, Aaron Jones is a solid veteran running back that's still got some mileage left on him, and he could take the pressure off of him. So, and with the Bears, they have, a couple of other running backs besides DeAndre Swift. You got Khalil Herbert, who I thought was good last year, even though he dealt with some injuries as well. But when he was healthy, he was pretty good. They also did draft Roschon Johnson last year, so he's kind of like that third back. But, the running game, I think, will be solid for the Bears. So, but, we'll just have to we'll have to wait and see. But for me, I think the Bears, their offense should be good. Their offense should be good. And you pair that up with the defense that played well towards the end of last year. I think this team can make the playoffs. Now, I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to win the division. Because, again, there's a couple other teams in that division that I still think are better. But I think the Bears can make the playoffs. I think they could. The conference isn't as loaded as the AFC. I don't see why not. And rookie quarterbacks have made the playoffs in the past. So, I mean, Caleb Williams could be the latest one to do that. But we'll have to see. You don't really know until games are actually played. And I'm curious to see where the Bears are going to be playing to start the season. Are they going to have, it wouldn't surprise me if you had the Packers and the Bears play each other the first week, Sunday Night Football. And you have Caleb Williams playing in Lambeau Field against Jordan Love and the Packers. Oh, wait, nope, never mind. Nope, pretend I didn't say that because the Packers are playing in Brazil that Friday. Never mind. That's not going to happen. Maybe week 2. Pretend I didn't say that. I forgot that they're playing in Brazil. We'll see where Caleb Williams opens, or maybe he is on Sunday night. I feel like, I don't know. I don't want to try to speculate when the Bears will play in week 1, but we'll see. I mean, maybe they're in the afternoon slate, or maybe they are. Maybe they're one of the Monday night games. I don't know if I know they're going to have multiple Monday night games being played during certain weeks. I don't know if I don't think they're doing the doubleheader again. Week 1, but we'll see. Apologize for forgetting that the Packers are playing the Friday of opening weekend against the Eagles, which actually they did have the lines for those games. The Eagles actually right now are 1.5-point favorite. So make your bets, if you want to. So, we'll just have to see. But, So, I look, the Bears are going to be a team that I'm interested in, and I'm curious to see how the offense gels, because they got a lot of playmakers. And you got a rookie quarterback, and I think they're going to do well. Now, I don't know how many games they're going to win. Like I said, I think they'll probably win. I think their ceiling this year is probably 9-10 wins. I think 10 is reasonable. But they play in a tough division. That division is one of the toughest divisions. It's not the AFC North, but the NFC North is a pretty good division in its own right. So again, we'll just have to wait and see. But I think 9-10 wins for the Bears. I don't think that's crazy. So Caleb Williams, he's officially going to be the starting quarterback for the Bears. And, we'll see how the Bears do in the upcoming season. But he's officially their starting quarterback. But we knew that was going to happen. So, again, let me know what you guys think about the Bears and how you think they're going to perform in 2024. So when we come back from our final break of the show for the fifth and final segment, we'll talk about another team with their quarterbacks, and that's the Raiders. Quarterback battle between Gardner Minshew and AidanO'Connell. We'll talk about what the Raiders had to say regarding their quarterback situation, and that's what we will do when we get back from our fourth and final break of the show for the fifth segment. So, with that being said, for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fifth and final part of the show, we are going to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. I wanted to talk about some things they had to say regarding their quarterback situation. So let's get right into that. So I wanted to talk about what Raiders general manager Tom Telesco had to say about the position specifically. So the Raiders, they're kind of going into the season with Gardner Minshew and AidanO'Connell. They're going to compete for that starting job. So this is what he had to say. That's the plan, is to have both those guys really compete through the offseason program, but more so in training camp, and we'll see how it plays out. I thought Aidan did an excellent job last year in a really difficult situation where the head coach changed, the coordinator changed, and he played really good football down the stretch. I've had a chance to be around him a little bit more in the building, and you kind of see the quarterback intangibles that are there, which is nice to have, that you have to have as a franchise quarterback. And then with Gardner, Gardner played well last year with the Colts. I mean, he was in the Pro Bowl, so obviously had a pretty good year. He's always performed at a high level when he's given the opportunity. So to have those guys here competing for the job, we'll see how it goes. Now, for me personally, I mean, I would lean towards Gardner Minshew being the starter. But again, that's my opinion. But yeah, I mean, AidanO'Connell did what he was supposed to do. I mean, he managed the game. I mean, especially you go back and you look at his stats from the Kansas City game on Christmas. I mean, he didn't complete a pass after the first quarter. So, and with the Raiders last season, 2,200 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Actually, I wanted to go back to his stats from the Chiefs game. So yeah, he went 9 of 21 for 62 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. That's all he was asked to do. Complete 9 passes, and that's it. Just hand the ball off. Because Zamir White had a big game, had 145 yards rushing. And the reason why I remember that number is because that was against me in my fantasy playoffs. So still stings. But yeah, I mean, he passed for 244 against the Broncos, 299 against the Colts. He had 2 touchdowns in both of those games. I told you the Kansas City stats. Against the Chargers had a good game. I mean, a lot of people had a good game against the Chargers. They won 63-21. 248 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then against the Vikings, he was 21 of 32, 171 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. And the Raiders lost that game 3-0. Yeah, that was a weird 2-game stretch because they got shut out 3-0 at home, and then they put up 63 points against the Chargers. So, but yeah, his QBR was 40.5 last year. But yeah, I mean, those were his stats. But you know what? Listen, won a few games for the Raiders. Won 3 of the 5 games that he started. It was a close game against the Colts and the Vikings. Also, he played against the Dolphins. I don't know why they don't. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so those are just some of his games, but also played against the Chiefs at home. They lost that game. They lost against the Dolphins. He threw 3 picks. They did beat the Jets 16-12. I know. I was gonna say, I'm like, wait, I thought he played in more games, but yeah, it's because they weren't showing all of them. I'm looking at ESPN. They beat the Giants 30-6. He was put in against the Bears because Brian Hoyer started that game. He went 10 of 13, 75 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And then he also did start against the Chargers, the first day of October. He went 24 of 39, 238 yards, no touchdowns and a pick, and he got sacked 7 times, and 6 of those came off of Khalil Mack. Because Khalil Mack had a massive game there. Yeah, he had 6 sacks in that. But yeah, so he actually did win, 5 games as the starter for the Raiders. So, and that because they made the switch because Jimmy Garoppolo just did not play well. And they did have Brian Hoyer, but yeah, AidanO'Connell, he started most of the games because the quarterback position was not was a kind of a carousel last year. And then let's look at Gardner Minshew's stats. So yeah, the Colts went 9-8 last season, and Minshew, he came in when Anthony Richardson went down, and Minshew played well. he finished, he had 3,300 yards passing, 15 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Played in the Pro Bowl. But yeah, so let's look at his best game from last season. Probably came against the Colts, or against the Titans in overtime. He went 26 of 42, 312 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions in that game. Again, the Colts finished 9-8, and they were very close to making the playoffs, but he had that crucial drop on 4th down, and the Texans got the ball back, and that was the end of the game basically. But Minshew, he played well, and I feel like he's gonna get the starting job, in my opinion. But that's just me. I think that he's the better option of the two. But I feel like whoever gets the starting job, they do have a decent amount of playmakers around him. You got Devontae Adams, you got Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker. They're now going into his second year. He was making plays for him. You obviously got Brock Bowers now in the mix. So, and the running back position, we'll see how that plays out. But I think Zamir White's probably going to get the starting job. Right now, you got him, and they brought in Alexander Madison, who was not coming off of a good year. But, like I said, and they also brought in Michael Gallup as well. So, you got playmakers. I think this offense could be decent. I think it just really all comes down to the quarterback play. And the defense should be improved. They brought in Christian Wilkins from the Dolphins to go with Max Crosby. So, I don't think the Raiders are going to be a playoff team, but I feel like with Minshew they could be decent. Kind of hang around till late in the season, But I don't think the long-term answer is on the roster here. I think the Raiders, they're going to have to try to figure it out elsewhere. Now, I know that Marcus Spears said this on ESPN, that, there's a quarterback that could be on the market, that could hit free agency and is looking for a new deal. Now, you're going to have to pay a lot to get him, but Dak Prescott, I think the Raiders, they could be a team that, could be in the mix to get him. Now, it all depends on how, I guess. Gardner Minshew, you kind of know what he is. He's a backup quarterback. We haven't really seen. We kind of saw what AidanO'Connell could do. I don't really think he's a long-term answer, but maybe AidanO'Connell comes out and he has a really good 2024, and then maybe the Raiders say, "Hey, this is our franchise guy." But I don't think so. I think the Raiders could be a team. I agree that maybe watch out for them when it comes to Dak Prescott if he doesn't go back to Dallas. I could see that. And I think that'd be a good situation for Dak because you have a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball. And I think that could be a spot you can go and put up good numbers with Devontae Adams, who's still got some good years left in him. Now he's in his 30s, but he's still Devontae Adams. I'm expecting him to have a good season here. I think that'd be a good spot for Dak. Now, I don't know how far the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders would get that far with Dak either. I think the best you get is, the second round, because that's really all he's been able to do his whole career. But with Dak, if the Raiders are looking for a quarterback, they should definitely try to make a push to maybe get Dak Prescott. And Eric, who's still in the chat, said he would be great there. Yeah, again, with that supporting cast, and, I think with Antonio Pierce, who's a defensive-minded guy, well, from playing defense, just looking at it from that angle, part of some good defenses with the Giants. I think that would be a good spot for him. Now, you'd be in the same division as Patrick Mahomes, and you figure now with Harbaugh as the coach of the Chargers, they're going to be a better team. And I don't really know what to expect out of the Broncos right now with Sean Payton, but yeah, that would be a tough division to get put in, as opposed to the NFC East, which has kind of been a cakewalk his whole career. Outside of the Eagles, who've been their number one competition, but yeah, it'd be a tough division, but I think it'd be a good spot for him. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But that was just, I know that was one thing that I saw not too long ago. Something, again, that Marcus Spears said from ESPN, that maybe the Raiders could maybe inquire on Dak. So we'll see. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Eric, thank you for tuning into the show. I'll see you in a little bit and for the production meeting. Also, he's called Eazy-E. Now, when I think of Eazy-E, I think of Eli Manning. So that's a compliment in its own right. Yeah, so like I said, make sure to tune into Eric's show. I know it's, depending on where you are, it's 11:30 p.m. Eastern time, but on the West Coast, it's 8:30 p.m. West Coast time. So, wherever you are, just, kind of figure out how that applies to you. But, yeah, make sure to tune into his show. Make sure to tune into all the other shows as well on the network. I got more shows that are starting up. I pretty much cover every sport almost. So yeah, make sure to tune into everybody else's shows. I know the NBA playoffs is still going on. Baseball in full swing. So the hockey playoffs as well. The golf podcast. We got it all pretty much. Women's sports. I know Caitlin Clark's WNBA debut is coming up, so I think it's actually tonight. So, make sure to check out the women's sports podcast, the Hoops and Heels podcast is what it's really called. Yeah. So make sure to check out everybody's shows. Eric just said, bro, best compliment I have ever received. I appreciate that. I think you've probably gotten better compliments than that. There's no way that I was the best compliment. I've given you the best compliment ever. I don't think so. But I appreciate that. But yeah, so make sure to check out all the other shows. Eric, again, appreciate you tuning in, as well as everybody else that's tuned in today. So with that is all the time that we have for today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.